Hello and welcome to my Champions League final preview video where I'm gonna tell my thoughts before the match starts between Manchester City and Inter Milan. My prediction, that's going to be at the end of the video, but before that tell my thoughts and how these teams got here, where they are in the Champions League final, and some key stats as well, one for each team that I found key numbers. And starting with the road to the final first, and for Manchester City, they are unbeaten in this year's Champions League, at least before the final. They were on top of their group ahead of likes of Sevilla and Dortmund, but then in the round of 16 they faced Leipzig and it was 1-1 after the first leg, so maybe in some kind of trouble, but then they destroyed Leipzig 7-0 at Etihad Stadium in the second leg, and they were going to quarterfinals where they faced another German side, Bundesliga champions this year, Bayern München, and they beat them 4-1. And then in the semi-finals, Haaland didn't score any goals, but it was 1-1 after the first leg at Santiago Bernabeu, so Real Madrid may be close of getting into final once again. But then Manchester City second leg, and it was great performance from them, and they beat Real Madrid 4-0, and just great performance especially from Bernardo Silva, and they are through the final against Inter Milan. And how did Inter got here? Well, bit different road, so they were second in their Group C, and it was really tough group, and they got ahead of Barcelona. Barcelona third, they were behind Bayern München, who they lost to twice in the group, but either way they were through the round of 16, and maybe you could argue that this is easier road, maybe not the group stage, but the playoff stage for Inter than for Manchester City. They beat Porto 1-0, and it was a tough matchup, but they beat Porto 1-0. Then another Portuguese team, Benfica, this time the result, it was 5-3 aggregate score after 2 legs. And then Derby della Madonnina, the Milan derby, it was the semi-final, and they beat another Milan team 3-0. And both teams, they still have a chance to win the treble, at least technically. So for Inter Milan, they are Supercoppa and Coppa Italia winners. They didn't win the Serie A though, whereas for Manchester City they won the Premier League and FA Cup, so technically both of the teams could still win the treble. And some key stats that I found. So for Manchester City it's 1, and it's regarding to Erling Haaland, because, well, it's important if he could score for City and for their winning hopes. If he could score, Haaland, he has scored only 1 goal in the 8 games. Of course he has rested some matches, but that's an interesting stat considering how ridiculously good Haaland has been all this season. And as for Inter Milan, their stat is 11, and why it's 11, it's simply because they won 11 out of their last 12 games. Only loss was against Napoli, and they got red card early in that match, so maybe that affected the match result and the fact that Inter lost that one. So it should be exciting, and I do hope that it's not just that Manchester City will attack and Inter Milan will defend, but Inter Milan, they would actually try to attack and get some goals so that the match could be more entertaining than just Manchester City all the time attacking. But if I had to tell my prediction, well, even if I mentioned the Haaland that even if he doesn't score, Manchester City, they just have so many players that can score. Gundogan, for example, has proved it lately. So I would go with Manchester City, but it may not be as easy choice as some people may think, because I do think if Inter Milan they try to attack, they could have a chance at beating Manchester City, but City, they are doing so great, even though they lost to Brentford their last Premier League game of the season. But I do think Manchester City, they are gonna win this one. But what are your thoughts before this match starts? Which team do you think will win? And what kind of scoreline are you predicting? And hit the like and subscribe for more football content, and have a nice day.